Hey, what's up guys, this is Oakley and we're doing a 1 versus 1 battle on Napoleon Total War. I'm going to be playing as Great Britain. My opponent is going to be from the MGL clan and he's going to be MGL Dion, so thank you so much for, taking part in this battle if you're watching. But anyways, yeah, I told you I'd follow up from that massive battles, taking into account my lessons learned as I get acclimated back into Napoleon. And obviously the biggest lesson from that is grouping together your light troops. So we can go ahead and look over my build. So I have 3 of these light foot backed up by 4 of these foot infantry here. And then I have 2 fencibles kind of to be my reinforcements. They're stacked with my general and a King's German Legion Dragoon. And kind of what I have symmetrically built on either flank is going to be a light foot paired with 2 elite units, Highland foot and foot guards, and then also King's German Legion light dragoons. So as I said, mirrored on both flanks. Could pop this up a little bit bigger so you can see my symmetric build, skirmishers in the front, and then 2 sort of elite flanking forces with cavalry, mirroring what I saw the other MGL guys do in the massive battles. My opponent has gone for a non-symmetric build. Over on this flank he has 3 Fusiliers of the line, so that should pair up pretty well against my guys. I have the range to beat him, and I have the superior quality troops to beat him on this flank. Over in the center he has 3 Voltigeurs, so I should be able to take those guys on with my 3 in the center. The problem is he has these 3 Chasseurs à Cheval in the center paired up with his general, and then a lot more of the Chasseurs à Cheval 4 on this flank. So he could pretty much overwhelm my force over there. He has militia to screen the approach of these old guards. He has 3 of those with the Polish Legion. So this is a very, very scary flank. A lot of cavalry support, a lot of heavy troops, fodder units to just push through and crush my guys. And he's not as, believing in this flank, and so that's why he's going to be shifting over to his right, and I'm going to decide to push in on that front while simultaneously pulling back my left and slowing that advance down. Let's go ahead and watch some of these Frenchmen as they move into position. Like I said in that massive battles of Napoleon, I had mentioned that I was going to try and do more of these throwback videos. You guys often try and request, why don't you go back and play this game? So I'm definitely open to suggestions if you guys think I should play anything. Any factions you recommend, game types, which map you'd like to see. It's all fun. It just obviously will take me maybe a game or 2 to get back into the swing of things. I tried playing a couple Empire games, but the servers were being really buggy, and we had a hard time actually trying to fight a game. It would always kind of lag out on us, and I tried to get some massive battles because the Empire is definitely fun. It's obviously similar to Napoleon. Napoleon is more refined. I tend to like Napoleon better, but Empire has a little bit more unit variety, diversity, and the maps are perhaps a little bit more interesting at times. Sorry, I am lining up with my light foot, coming back with my foot troops. You can see how I'm not keeping the footmen just next to my light foot. There's something called the sort of like the dead zone, which is when your troops engaged in massed volleys, firing, there's going to be some overshot, and the overshot range usually will kind of end up here, and so you want to be at least this far away from your troops engaged in the fight, just so you don't lose any extra men, suffer any casualties for no reason. I notice on the right I have the range advantage, so I'm going to be moving to secure this crossroads. Go ahead and minimize this window. It's going to be rather apparent how the battle is going to play out. So unfortunately I did have to play as the Great Britain troops. I mean, they are definitely a strong army, but just for personal reasons, I'd rather play as the French. My parents are French. As you guys have noticed with the pronunciation of some of the French units, I do have an easier time with that. So he's going to be pushing this front. He's going to allow these Fusiliers to take a couple of the shots, and I'm getting a lot of nice shots, especially with my foot guards. Just a nice mass fire on his men from all these ranks. The Hussars are going to try and push forward, but I have some of my own cavalry on intercept duty. I'm going to go ahead and pull back some of my guys, form my foot guards into square, and then try and pull these light foot back in his formation. Thankfully the woods was enough to hold back the enemy forces, and now he's caught between 2 squares. I'm going to get a nice counter charge on him. This does, however, expose my own units over in this position, but at least he's only able to face off against me with the really kind of depleted Fusilier unit here. He's going to take a big chunk out of my guys, so I'm going to try and retreat before his Chasseurs à Cheval can get a good amount of shots. But yeah, this is getting pretty desperate on my part. Starting to lose a good amount of men. Our cavalry are both going to be pretty much nerfed, and the overwhelming number of Chasseurs à Cheval is going to keep me from successfully pulling out of that fight. So I'm pulling over some more light foot to hopefully break the opponents. And now I'm going to get some nice final shots, I think, on the Frenchmen as they pull out. My cavalry are going to do a final retreat, and I'm going to have my Highland foot here to hold this front. And this is not going to go well from my my troops here, but they're forced into that position because of the you know, surround that the cavalry has on me. Meanwhile, my opponent sees that I'm distracted here. He's going to push up on that front. I'm going to try and reposition. But at least I have Lightfoot out in the front, and the first thing they're going to shoot is the Old Guard, which is exactly what I want. They can actually start peppering his militia. I'm actually, yeah, looks like I'm going to turn out, and I don't want to take that on the flank. I'm going to pull back and allow my foot there to shoot his guys up first. You can see I tried to pull my guys back out of square. First thing he does is then charge me. But at least I have reinforcing lines, and now he's going to pull up and try and engage with my guys. Over here, his one militia fodder unit is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, absorb fire. But that's okay. You know, now he can keep pushing up with the rest of his men, but I have reserve lines. That's why you want to always have reserve troops, and so you can have more guys in the back, and so I'm able to fall back to these positions without getting completely crushed. He's going to start to unleash the cavalry. Very, very Napoleonic of him. So here they come, chasing after my men. And traditionally, what the move is, you send in your cavalry, force the squares, and you would reinforce with cavalry fire. Cavalry was not really a part of this game, but what he could have done is formed up with the Old Guard, and they can hit like cannons. But because of the reinforcing flanks and defense in depth, those cavalry were not able to be very effective, and I left one foot unit out here. They're going to pull back and then try and form into square. So there they go. So they should be able to withstand this cavalry assault and allow me to survive this. Meanwhile, my King's German Light Dragoons are just here to fend off cavalry if they try and penetrate too far. Meanwhile, the center is kind of collapsing. My elite units are doing pretty well on this front. I was able to beat back the French troops, some chasseurs cheval in the distance. Meanwhile, I'm holding back a lot of his forces here. I was able to crash in with my Light Dragoons, contest this position, allow me to fight back with my Lightfoot. More reinforcements here. He's trying to put on the hurt with me with all these Old Guards, chasseurs cheval. The massed fire is doing tremendous amounts of damage, so I'm forced to pull back with my cavalry, sacrifice my Lightfoot, and try and reform this line into some semblance of a fighting force. The main advantage is I have more of my Lightfoot alive, especially on this side. It'll allow me to chip away at his units from a distance and just try and pull back. He's going to keep charging into my men. Great use of cavalry. However, he had invested a lot into cavalry, whereas I invested a lot into infantry. So while it may look like you're seeing a lot of cavalry charges taking out my infantry, at the end of the day, you know, those are trades I can kind of afford to make because I invested more in infantry, he invested more in cavalry, and I have more infantry overall than he does have cavalry. So, you know, if I can get his cavalry eliminated at this point and keep those infantry troops from all-out routing, that should be to my advantage. I'm going to give him a taste of his own medicine, try and have my Highland Foots, you know, survive, and then come crashing in with some Light Dragoons. Meanwhile, the fight is continuing to develop here. I'm pushing back on that flank with my Lightfoot. See if we can't watch this charge, and he's going to form up at the last minute. This is one of the features I really love from this game, is the fact that cavalry will rear up. I really, really hope they start to implement this in Total War games again, because it's pretty unrealistic how heavy cavalry, cataphracts, and all that can charge into mass infantry ranks regardless of what's happening. I really think they need this rearing up component. It might cause some balancing issues, but you know, a little bit of nerfs to cavalry couldn't hurt too much. But obviously you would only have units, maybe they could, you know, if they did that, they'd have to follow historical reasoning, which is to say, the only reason a cavalry force won't be able to break a unit is if it's able to hold its cohesion. So they would have to have some way to show that, you know, it was pretty rare, especially going into the early Middle Ages, for units to be able to hold their own cohesion. So elite troops definitely would have, you know, not be routed by heavy cavalry assaults. So hopefully they'll have a way to reflect that in the future. Meanwhile, I'm countercharging up through the line, or my opponent is. He's tying up all my forces, a very good move. But I have enough foot units and reinforcements to actually come back into the fight. His cavalry are pretty much exhausted at this point, and I'm pulling back my Lightfoot to my infantry line. He's going to continue to just run up the entire line. Attacking from the flank with cavalry is actually a pretty good move in this game. You attack one unit, cause them to be disrupted, and then you keep charging down the line, and meanwhile your own troops, you know, reform. The Old Guard's getting closer and closer and closer. However, on the flanks, my cavalry assault into this force, I got them down to a small enough number that I could actually, you know, prevent them from being in square. This allowed me to break this Old Guard unit pretty well, keep them from the fight, and it's going to allow me to come in with my Highland Foot and contest this fight. I'm going to be forced to pull back. I have cavalry in my rear, so I'm actually sending my general to clean up those cavalry forces. Pretty desperate on my part, but it will end up paying off. Meanwhile, on this flank, my foot troops are taking off the French fusiliers of the line. I'm going to, you know, chalk that up as a victory. Some of my own units in the back are going to be able to, you know, clean up these forces, and I'm going to swing around, and try and clean up this position. I should have this front, and that's going to be the last of his light foot. If I can win the light foot fight and have some infantry left, then I can definitely take out his old guards. Just keep them at at a range and beat them back. Looks like his general is going to be in the mix. Trying to launch an assault and tie my guys down. I'm going to take some pot shots at his general as he charges over. He's going to be going after my light foot. He knows those are going to be important units. And so he's kind of crushing through my center, so I'm going to try and pull my general back out of range of the fight. I know he's going to try and target me next. Yeah, you can see here comes the general out for blood, kicking up some units. So here he comes after my my own force. I'm going to try and reform my infantry to get some parting shots. My general, for some reason, is not really running, so I'm going to turn around and accept that fight and just shoot up these French general units. Meanwhile, on this flank, some of my routing units are going to come back. They're barely hanging on in terms of morale, but here they come, nonetheless, fighting against the old guard. And just as both of our generals essentially killed each other, it seems like, and that's going to cause a huge morale blow on my side. So the old guard on this flank sort of functioning much like a general would, holding the entire morale integrity of this force together. Meanwhile, the rest of my guys are kind of starting to rout and break all over the field. You can see the morale is kind of on this side of the field. I'm still have a healthy number of troops, but they're all starting to rout and break. Some of my cavalry kind of came back just at the last minute. At the red light, I didn't quite see them just yet, but I'll be pulling them back into the fight, and they'll be very crucial. At least on this front, I was able to gain an advantage, even though my offensive wolves were about to rout. And now I can start pulling these units. And I got these guys into the fight. They got close, one shot, and they routed. So I am teetering on the edge of breaking the entire morale of my force. I have to be very careful. So you can see me drawing back in the face of the fire. I can't hold up to the old guard and the amount of firepower they can put on. So I'm going to try and fall back, reform, and see who I can bring back from routing. A lot of these troops are now going to start to reform. I need to, have this component of the army come back, especially the light foot. Very, very important. So they're going to turn about. You can see the old guard is actually now going to be in pursuit of these routing forces. But now I'm going to be pulling in the rest of my forces. Light foot reforming, cavalry reforming. That's actually going to help boost the morale of the men around them, and they should be reforming. My opponent is going to be wary of engaging. He doesn't want to take too many casualties, especially from light foot. And over here he's going to be forming up, hoping that some of his guys in the rear of my line are actually going to start reforming, but it's not going to be the case. I'm going to be pulling up some of my more healthy units. Sizable chunk of light foot right there. And I'm going to actually start shifting more men over to the left. I know I want to isolate and destroy his old guard. Over here, he's pretty, happy to sit in that one position with old guard holding down the morale. I'm just going to, hold that back. He doesn't want to engage. I have enough numbers to just force a standstill, and I'm going to divert the rest of my forces over here. Try and get a pincer on my opponent. These light foot are very untrustworthy. These were the guys who reformed, and just in the face of the old guard, they're going to go ahead and break. So I'm not even, yep, this guy broke without even having, any stake in the battle. So the fear of the old guard is definitely real at this point. So the battle is coming down to the wits of our men on both sides. Thank God some of my cavalry came back. It's going to be a very important part of the battlefield. And so they can help me break some of these French old guard units. I don't necessarily want to throw them away, but they're going to be enough to force his guys back. You can see how they're starting to get scared. And some of these units are too small that square is not going to work. So I'm going to commit these troops to the front line. You can see the drummer boys start to sound the shots. And I'm actually going to get the drop on these old guard, get the shots on first. And this other unit of Polish legions actually is not able to form up into square. So I'm able to crush these guys. Excellent. And then the old guard over here taking tremendous losses, and they're actually going to shatter outright. So tables are now turning a bit more in my favor. However, my light dragoons are going to break. The other old guard unit is just trying to make sure these two units make it to the red line and they don't come back. So that's a pretty good use for them. And then he's going to pull back. Now that I don't have the support of my cavalry, I may not be able to win this fight, but I'm going to try nonetheless. So here we go. Again, trying to get some shots off. However, my guys are forced to reload. They already got their volley off, so it's going to be the opponents who are going to be punishing me now. It's really down to the couple of volleys going on here. The old guard is now going to be coming to reform this fight. I have more infantry in the rear, trying to support this and kind of put them in the position where my opponent could not wheel troops over to the right to help them out. So it looks like I'm going to break this force. So at this point, I'm pretty happy. We can fast forward. However, this is not the end of the battle. I'm going to go ahead and try and push forward on this flank. My opponent is going to thin out the ranks, set down some stakes with the hope that those stakes might hold up a little bit of the fire. And he's actually going to get some early shots on my men. Just a couple shots, but it's going to be enough to start causing my men to fear for their lives. I'm going to press forward with the rest of the flanks and start to push up. And now this is where again the morale is going to turn against me. Lightfoot is going to break. This unit I can't engage with Lightfoot down, so I'm going to just allow one of my guys. Nope, I'm actually going to pull him back in the face of the Old Guard charging. I have to pull out of that formation. So this is still in the balance. The Old Guard are now in the fight, able to break them. So this is 2 free units, so I can pull back. So they're going to be coming back into the fight. However, like I said over here, I can't really take this fight. I thought I could. I'm going to try and push the flanks, but the morale is so low that he could probably beat me. And if he beats me here, then the Lightfoot advantage goes back to my opponent. He can then kill me at a distance, and I can't do anything. So it's really up to me to hold. This is basically the last Lightfoot unit on my side. Very, very important unit tactically, so I'm not willing to commit them. I'm spreading at my flanks so that my opponent can't just all-out charge one force. If he does, he would expose his flanks. I'm going to be going for a bit of a surround. You can see me here circling around my opponent, and it is 4 to I think 3 units. Yeah, the other unit of his is scared, but he does have Old Guard, and he does have 2 light troops to my 1 light troop. So this is still very much hanging in the balance. And if you look at the morale of his force is actually much better than mine. So here we go, up the middle. I decided to attack at an oblique angle up to the flank. That's probably the best way to get some shots off. And I figured I would target the Old Guard. If I can take those guys out, that'll sort of hurt a lot of his morale. And those are the most, juicy targets I could take out. So a couple of those men are going to go down. And I'm going to push, and I'm going to get some flanking fire on his guys. I'm going to be a little bit broken up by the line of sight of the trees. But this angle of fire is excellent. If I miss one of those units, it'll most likely hit another one of his troops. But a lot of that is actually pretty effectively being eaten up by these little stakes and also the trees, so I'm not getting the amount of fire I would like. My infantry is now going to be moving up, but again, on the precipice of retreating, so that's when he's going to push forward with his Old Guard, push forward on this flank, so being very, very aggressive. Fortune favors the bold, though. And I'm very scared of a volley from the Old Guard. They can punish you with a volley, high accuracy, high rate of fire. I think a volley from them would probably break this force, and then I would all out lose, so I'm not willing to take that fight. I'm going to pull back and just allow my other units to tank that, let my light troops engage from a distance. Over here he does a concentrated fire on my guys. I get a couple of volleys off, but most of my shots are not going to be doing too much damage. You can see his line is totally good. My Highland foot is going to start to break, and this is what I'm talking about. Over here this fight is not really going in my favor. All of my volleys are getting basically no kills. Meanwhile, he's picking apart my line. The rest of my forces are breaking. Old Guard is charging Lightfoot. Voltigales are charging my line. This is not going well for me at this point. I'm very, very scared. However, my left is kind of holding together. These guys are strong. I get a nice clean volley of the entire 87 units against his Voltigales. You see how that's doing almost no damage, but finally they're going to break and actually completely collapse. So that is very, very good. However, this Old Guard, if they get toe-to-toe with my forces, they should be able to destroy them. Looks like they're going to line up for volley. Let's see. Okay, whew. I was able to withstand that volley, but over on the left flank, I lost that foot unit. Oh my god. And there, he completely shattered my force. And so now the battles have, the odds have once again turned. They're still in my favor here, but, on paper, he has 2 units to my 1 Old Guard and Voltigeurs, who can now turn about and fire at my men's flank. Not going well. I have Highland foot in the distance coming into this fight, but it looks like we actually will be able to get a volley on the Old Guard. I was able to reload, I should be able to reload before him, so we're going to get the volley. These early volleys are going to be crucial in these instances, so all along the line you can see my men firing off their shots desperately, trying to break the charge of the Old Guard. A couple of these elite men are going to be going down, waving the French flag as they charge into my guys. Flanking shots coming in from the Voltigeurs. And it looks like he may actually be able to come crashing down into my men. I'm going to form up into square. That does buy you a little bit of time in melee combat. So I'm hoping that'll allow me time to have more of my guys regroup, which it has, and I'm going to be pulling those guys into the fight and try and, I'm going to all out ignore this unit, and I'm just going to go and try and wipe out these Old Guard. I know their backs are exposed to me, so if those guys, my units in the back, can come in and shoot his guys in the rear, that should be to my advantage. But my unit is desperately low on morale. But the square is providing me time to hold out even longer. Here come my guys. As I said, I'm ignoring that other force, but the Voltigales picked off my men, so again, the balance of power, look at this, it's wavering back and forth. It's still pretty much 50-50, but now I lost 2 of my forces, and now he's going to pull back to the Old Guard. A good move, obviously, and he's going to do everything he can to chase after these men, kill them, make sure they're shattered. But thankfully, his old guard actually broke. So now, all of a sudden, the bounce meter goes in my favor because I have units who can come back. However, this Highland Foot is actually not going to come back. So what it's going to come down to is a 1v1 match, 27 Voltiels versus 74 of these foot troops. And these foot troops, man, these guys have come in and out of the battle. They've routed, come back multiple times. So I'm going to stand them off here, and my idea is, you know, his guys can get me at a distance, and I just have to get up close. So the best way to approach this is through the woods. I'm going to line up here. I'm going to make sure all my guys are reloaded, give them a little bit of time, and now we're going to move forward. It looks like he is ready for this fight. None of my men are going to be coming back, so yeah, this will be pretty close. I think at closing on this distance right here, my opponent should be starting to get some shots off. Let's see if that'll actually turn out to be picking off my men, or if the trees will actually be in my favor. So let's see this. I think the shots should be bringing out relatively soon. Yeah, here they come. A couple of the shots coming overhead. It picks off just 2-3 men in that volley. A couple more. So no damage there, and then I get a blistering shot onto his men. A lot of it being intercepted on the stakes, so this is going to come down to the last couple volleys. My opponent is going to try and pull out, and that's going to actually force him to break. So down to the last 2 units, 23 versus 70. So I always like these battles that come down to the last man, and this is probably the closest battle I've ever seen. But thanks so much for MGL Dion for playing this battle. I really enjoyed getting back to Napoleon, and I hope you guys enjoyed this fight. I definitely brought a lot more infantry. He brought more cavalry, and so yeah, I suffered way more casualties. Let's see if anyone had outstanding numbers of kills. No, not too much. It's kind of even kills all around. However, yeah, some of my foot who held out till the end did pretty well. So thank you so much to my opponent. Again, leave your suggestions for what you'd like to see in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much. Peace out.